In this video, we are going to take a look at the last 50 years of data and see how real estate in Orange County has reacted during recessions. There's been a lot of talk of a potential recession in the near future, so I think it's important to know how the market here could react and what it's done in the past. If you're new to the channel, my name's Ian Phillips. I'm a realtor in Orange County. I'm uploading weekly videos, diving into the market, talking about what's going on, as well as occasionally uploading more broader videos, more broader economic videos, because all of that does impact local markets. So if you're interested, subscribe for more, and let's get straight into it. So what happens to Orange County home values in a recession? By the way, I created this. I put together all of the data. The link is in the description below. If you want to read more or access my website, you can contact me there as well. So this is going to be 50 years of Orange County real estate through every recession. So in the early 1980s, we had an inflationary recession. And during this period of time, mortgage rates skyrocketed. The entire market had a large drop. The stock market went through multiple crashes, multiple corrections. So what happened to Orange County in particularly? So the Federal Reserve under Paul Volcker deliberately pushed interest rates to historic highs to crush runaway inflation. This was, like I mentioned, an inflationary recession. And the result was back-to-back recessions in 1980, 81, and 82. 30-year mortgage rates hit a staggering 18.4%. Imagine having an 18% mortgage rate. Obviously, home values were significantly more affordable back then, but still, incomes were also significantly less than they are now. So imagine if you're a first-time home buyer in the early 80s and you're getting quoted an 18% mortgage rate to buy a home. So Orange County home values declined by approximately 8% during this period. However, it is worth noting that the decline was driven almost entirely by interest rates. As expected, if interest rates all of a sudden go from 8% to 18%, it would make sense why significantly less buyers would be in the market and homes have that correction. So an 8% correction, not that much considering how high mortgage rates went. So early 1990s, by the way, I will show a chart, a graph that I put together later on in the video. It's going to show exactly how much home values dropped in each recession in Orange County, as well as compare it to what the stock market did. Because if you're someone who's investing, actively investing, maybe you're thinking of diversifying into a home here, a rental property, it's important to know how the stock market reacts during recessions as well. So I will show that visual later on. So the early 1990s, we had a recession from 1990 to 1991. And what happened to the market here? Home values in Orange County dropped by approximately 20 to 22% from their peak in 1991. So a pretty decent correction, a correction that took until the late 1990s to fully recover. And this was pre-dotcom bust. So I will take a look at what happened during the dotcom bubble as well. So a lesson to learn from the 1990s is important. When a recession is driven by local job losses in dominant industries, it can be an outsized impact on regional housing markets. So it makes sense if you are living in an area, as an example, where there's a huge amount of healthcare workers and all of a sudden there's a mass layoff with healthcare. Maybe the healthcare system is getting reformed and they don't need certain individuals in that industry, then that local market is 100% going to be affected. Similar to what we saw just a few years ago in San Francisco. We saw massive layoffs in San Francisco, and that caused the housing market to drop between 15 and 20% because the tech industry was hammered and is continuing to be hammered in a lot of areas. So let's look at the dot-com bust. So I think this one is very important because there's a lot of people discussing the idea of an AI bubble, stock market bubble, tech bubble. So me personally, I think if a recession is going to happen, something similar to the dot-com bust could potentially occur now. I think the tech industry is likely going to be what's impacted the most in the next recession. So this is the one that surprises most people. The S&P 500 lost approximately 49% of its value, while the Nasdaq, which is an index fund with tech stocks primarily, fell 78%. So the Nasdaq dropped almost 80%. The S&P 500 dropped almost 50%. And this lasted from March 2000 to October 2002. What happened to Orange County? Orange County home values rose by approximately 15% during this same period of time. So imagine if you're all in on the stock market, all in on tech stocks, because that is what everyone was hyped about, and your portfolio drops 80%. But if you diversified into a home here, that would have risen by 15%. Quite a good way to preserve your wealth. Now, the reason is straightforward. The 2001 recession was a stock market and technology sector problem, not a housing problem. The Federal Reserve responded by slashing interest rates aggressively, cutting the federal funds rate from 6.5% in 2000 all the way down to 1% by 2003. So think about that. If you're thinking of buying a home and all of a sudden mortgage rates go from 6.5% to 1.5%, 2%, you're more than likely going to get into the market and buy a home. That is likely why home values increased by 15% during this period of time. It was all of a sudden significantly more affordable, as long as you didn't have your entire wealth in the stock market, pretty much, during this same period of time. The Great Recession, or the financial crisis in 2008. This is one that everyone points to when they're worried about a housing crash, and it deserves honest treatment. From peak to trough, the S&P 500 fell approximately 57%. Orange County home values fell approximately 30% from their 2007 peak, with the median decline roughly from $620,000 to $397,000. So a significant drop in home values. 30% drop. Now, obviously, this recession was primarily due to bad loans, bad mortgages. So it would make sense why the housing market had a 30% drop here. But 2008 was not a normal recession, like I mentioned. It was a housing-triggered recession built on a foundation of subprime lending, zero-down mortgages, loans people couldn't qualify for now, and a level of leverage in the mortgage system that had never been seen before. The crash did not happen despite housing. It happened because of housing. That's important to know. This was not a general recession. This was because there was so much leverage in the housing market, so many bad loans that were given out. And it's important to know that 2008, the conditions that we saw in 2008 do not exist today. The ability to get these type of loans, it's impossible to do now. The lending standards, because of what happened during this financial crisis, are significantly more strict now. And to qualify for a home right now is significantly more difficult. So a repeat of 2008 in Orange County would require a completely different set of circumstances than what we're looking at right now. And this is important to know. It would be very difficult for this type of recession to occur right now, and near impossible unless lending standards start to dissipate and start to change. Now, the COVID recession, even though the S&P 500 did fall about 30%, in my opinion, it was very short-lived, not in my opinion. Objectively, it was short-lived. And of course, home values increased drastically since then all across the country. It was not Orange County specific. Mortgage rates went down to 2.5%. Buyers flooded the market. People were buying homes sight unseen. So it would really make sense why the housing market skyrocketed since 2020. Now, it's important to know not all markets have increased since then. A lot of places in California are actually down from their highs in 2022, but Orange County is significantly higher, about 15 to 20% higher since the market peaked in 2022. So let's take a look at this visual that I put together. OC home values during recessions from 1980 to 2020. So this is the early 80s. Remember, mortgage rates went to 18%. Home values dropped 8%. Pretty low considering how high mortgage rates went. And then we have the early 1990s recession brought on by no job growth in the area. The industries were seeing mass layoffs and home values dropped 22%. So pretty significant. Dot-com bust. Remember, during this period of time, the Nasdaq fell 80%. And home values in Orange County appreciated 15%. This was primarily because mortgage rates dropped substantially. So even though investments were falling off a cliff for anyone that was in the stock market, buyers were still entering the market here and saw opportunity, and that caused values to rise 15%. The Great Recession brought on by bad loans, clearly that's going to impact the housing market. Values dropped 30%. It is important to know that across the country, a lot of homes actually dropped over 50%. It was buy one, get one free in a lot of cases from their highs. So Orange County did drop 30%. COVID went up 8%. That was just in 2020, obviously substantially higher since that period of time. Now let's look at Orange County home values versus the S&P 500 during recessions. This is important. This is what I wanted to put together for a lot of people watching this video. So Orange County home values is this yellow, gold. S&P 500 is this blue. So 1980s, S&P 500 dropped 17%. Orange County dropped 8%. Early 1990s, S&P 500 dropped 20%. Orange County home values dropped 22%. Dot-com bust. S&P 500 dropped 49%, and the Nasdaq, by the way, dropped 80%. Orange County home values increased 15%. Imagine if you had moved your portfolio from stocks into real estate here. You would have saved an incredible amount of money. The financial crisis, S&P 500 dropped 57%. Home values here dropped 30%. So imagine that, a recession brought on by real estate, brought on by bad mortgages. The S&P 500 still dropped substantially more than home values here. COVID, short-lived. S&P 500 down 34%. House values up 8%. So that's the data I wanted to put together for everyone here today, because like I mentioned, there is some talks of a potential recession happening in the near future. So I do think it's important to look back at the data, see what has happened in the past. Maybe we can extrapolate some of that information, compare it to what's happening now, and potentially give an outline for where things could go if a recession were to happen. Remember, in 2008, the conditions are not nearly the same here, so I do not think something like this could happen. I think if a recession were to happen, it would be something more like the dot-com bubble. I'm obviously not suggesting a 50 to 80% stock market crash, but if we are in a bubble right now and things do start to turn bad in the stock market, the Federal Reserve would be forced to cut interest rates, and that in turn would drop mortgage rates, freeing up a lot of potential buyers to enter the market, because remember, that is what caused values to increase by 15% during the dot-com bubble, while stocks were down 50%. So that's kind of it for the video. You can check this out in the link below. It is a weekly blog that I'm publishing called the Orange County Gazette. So if you're interested, check that out. You can also browse for homes, get a free home valuation, contact me, etc. If you like this video, subscribe for more, and I'll see you next time.